plan on making a decision tomorrow?
I feel like I got to. I mean, so right now it's enjoyable as people probably think it is, but like Kirby says, when he wants to complain about being in the national championship and missing the portal window, it's like there's no crying from the yacht. So I'm not trying to get pity, but it's not as enjoyable as maybe some people would think.
Needless to say, the SEC had a banner day off the field. Some great matchups on the field. The SEC championship game is now set up. Lots of teams can now punch their ticket also to the college football playoff. But most notably, 5 new programs have a new head coach, and 1 is looking for a new head coach. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, right before the NFL games kicked off, we saw a huge wave of new coaches in the SEC, of course, highlighted by Lane Kiffin. We mentioned on this program probably 5 to 6 weeks ago that the Lane Kiffin decision would be the domino effect.
Yes.
It would start the dominoes for everybody else. And that's exactly the way that it played out. The Lane Kiffin stuff we'll dive into. It got a little messy for those that are keeping up there with college football. But I found yesterday to be one of the more dynamic, interesting days in the history of this conference.
Yeah, I mean, it was a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
But first of all, hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
100%.
Hope you spent some time with your family. I know I did, so I was amazing.
Yeah.
Getting to go up to New York. The weather wasn't great, but I was traveling back yesterday, and I'm sitting in the car on the way to the airport. Oh, there goes one. Silverfield's going to Arkansas. Oh, Walsh is going to Auburn. Oh, Sumrall is going to Florida. And it's
Right.
like, okay, we had 3 coaches just gone within 30 minutes.
Yep.
And then obviously the whole Kiffin situation, which I cannot wait to not talk about him
Right.
for like a long time.
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to get sick and tired of just talking about him all the time, and I think everybody else is at this point.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he lives for, though. But I mean, over a third of the SEC either fired or hired a new head coach.
Yeah, it's insane, and to think where we are now with this league, because and everybody talks about the calendar, and I know it's an awful time to be doing all of this, because you have SEC, not just SEC, everybody in the nation has signing day coming up on Wednesday, so you're trying to solidify your classes. At the same time, too, Alabama and Georgia, 2 teams obviously have their head coach. They're preparing for the SEC championship game, while all these coaches are, getting themselves lined up for where they're going to go next, and the assistant coaches also now looking for jobs as well. You mentioned the fatigue of Lane Kiffin, and I think a lot of it came because it just seemed that obviously there were a lot of tea leaves out there, and he would drop his things on X or on Twitter and the devotionals and stuff like that. People were reading between the lines, but also Ole Miss was right in the hunt of making the SEC championship game, because if things would have broken right, the first domino obviously broke with Texas A&M losing to Texas, but there was an avenue if Alabama lost the Iron Bowl to Auburn, where Ole Miss is in the SEC championship game. And this decision was on top of it, obviously, just one of those things that was on big picture speaking. It was, hey, what will Lane do vis-a-vis what's going on with Ole Miss? And I think that there were parts of Lane Kiffin that wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to be able to take the LSU job, take the $98 or whatever $1 million that came with it, at the same time try to coach this Ole Miss team to the national championship, because they have a great team. And obviously I'm not saying that they would have won the national championship, but I think with Lane, they had a really good shot at winning it. And then, of course, there was the line in the sand made by the Ole Miss AD and saying, hey, if you take this job, you're not coaching this team, which I get.
Yeah.
Then the line in the sand from Lane Kiffin to the assistant coaches that, hey, if you're not on this plane to Baton Rouge, you don't have a job as well. So I found the whole thing kind of fascinating. But then, obviously, what came after that to me was really interesting, because it felt like Lane built up all this goodwill in the offseason. He built up all this goodwill with that documentary. And now Ole Miss is somewhere where they've never been before, in the hunt right now for a national championship spot. And then all these dominoes fall, and it just seems sticky and messy.
I think you can make the argument that you can't really make an argument, because it's the fact that the schedule right now is broken.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Just the timing of everything, he had to leave at this point, because signing day, as you mentioned, is this week, and then the transfer portal opens up in, I think, a month from tomorrow.
Right.
So, I mean, you got to get a head start on what you're doing, but, we'd been talking about it for so long. And 2 things can be true. he obviously made the program into what it is now,
100%.
and it's in a better state than you could say it ever has been. And the other side can also be true in that this is just another messy departure in a history of messy departures for one man. I mean, you go back to the LAX tarmac.
Yep.
You go back to Tennessee leaving for USC.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to Nick Saban telling him, get out because you're so distracted on the FAU job.
Yes.
And then the not so messy one was just him leaving FAU for Ole Miss. You bring up a good point about the goodwill in the documentary and how he always said how he needed Oxford more than Oxford needed him.
Right.
And I feel like over the last 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna expand it to the last month.
Yeah.
He did Ole Miss a disservice by dragging this out for so long.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm so confused why Ole Miss was shocked and had to put in like a SOS plan yesterday.
Right.
Like you knew this was.
Yes.
All the credit goes to Keith Carter because
Right.
I wouldn't let
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin do it. Like I wouldn't let him coach.
No,
Why
absolutely.
would you do that?
Yeah, that would have been one of the dumbest things
Yeah.
ever had Ole Miss, and I'm glad that they drew a line in the sand and said, hey, this is what's going to happen. By saying, and people who are saying that Lane Kiffin should coach this team, even people that I know and respect, no, that would be idiotic to be able to have Lane Kiffin access to this Ole Miss
Let's
team.
just let a guy that built up our program who now just left it in shambles pretty much. I mean,
Right.
it's like you're leaving the field and you're just scraping up the logo as you leave.
Right.
And then let's just let him coach our team and then try to take all of our players down to our rival school, which is a good 200 miles away, who we beat this year, who is also coming back to Oxford next year.
That's another interesting thing.
Keep that one in mind.
Yeah.
Back to Oxford next year.
Yep.
So, the Lane train's going to be going up to Oxford. And let me tell you, Tennessee threw golf balls at him. I don't know what Oxford's going to throw at him, but, I mean, it's going to be chaos.
It's going to be mass chaos. And while I don't want this to always just be a belly aching about Lane Kiffin, he did take this team to heights that they have never seen before. And when you take a look at his resume and what Ole Miss has been able to do, the last time they had this level of success, in my opinion, consistent success, it was when Eli Manning was there, and before that, when Arch Manning was there. They won one SEC championship game like way back in the 1960s. But you take a look at what he's done: 55 wins so far, won dang near three-fourths of every game that he coached, 3 straight 10-win seasons. And he talked about at the beginning of the season, hey, that this program now has different expectations. They expect now to be a top 25 team, and they will probably, most likely, when the College Football Playoff Committee releases its final 12 teams, I would be shocked. I think most of college football would be shocked.
It would be a disservice if they kept him out of the playoff. Now, I know people are bringing up the whole FSU argument and Jordan Travis injury kept them out of the playoff. No. The coaches aren't the ones playing the game.
Yeah.
The players are.
Right.
You cannot tell me that a starting quarterback being out is on the same as your head coach being out. We see interim head coaches. I mean, I go back to the COVID days.
Right.
The interim head coaches still won the games.
Exactly.
Look at last year.
Yes.
Sharon Moore still won or 2 years ago. Sharon Moore still won the games when Jim Harbaugh is out. So don't come at all of us with the, Ole Miss should miss the playoff. That's just a sad argument for trying to get Notre Dame and Miami in over Ole Miss.
Yes, I mean, it's a lazy argument in my opinion. To have that now, if Trinidad Chambliss is out and they're starting, and Kewan Lacey's out, then I get it.
Yes,
being able to keep them out, but even still, I think the resume makes them earn a spot there in that college football playoff. And like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of interim coaches come in and win big games. We've seen that over and over again. We saw it at UCLA this past year. Interim coach comes in and they win the football game. And when you have a guy that's already been on staff, and a guy like Pete Golding, who is the defensive coordinator, now the interim head coach, or actually not even the interim head coach.
He's the permanent head coach.
He was an interim maybe for a second and a half, but they stripped that and said, hey, he's our permanent head coach, which I agree with Ole Miss. Hey, you had to do something, and with everything going around, I think that this is a good opportunity for a guy that coached with Nick Saban, coached with Lane Kiffin, coached with Steve Sarkisian. He's been around the best of the best. So this is not just some newbie guy, even though this is obviously his biggest opportunity here as this new head coach. But I'm right there with you. I think that Ole Miss has deserved a spot in the college football playoff, and I think with Pete Golding, they have a really good chance to continue the momentum that was already carried on by Lane Kiffin. I know he coaches the other side of the ball, but another guy that's one of the assistant coaches is staying on staff there. So I don't expect to see much drop off from a production standpoint, even though the marquee name is not on the field.
I'll be very interested to see how Pete Golding takes this opportunity and runs with it. Now I know he's had some problems off the field back at Alabama with the DUI and then that stuff, and then getting fired by Alabama. But I think Alabama fans just have such high standards that, you know, it was kind of you have to win, and you have to win championships. We won't just take winning. You have to win championships or you're out. But I think this is a great opportunity for him. The biggest surprise, in my opinion, I know you talked about the whole Lane Kiffin saying to his staff, "Hey, if you don't come on me, or if you don't come on the plane with me, you know, you're not coming with me, and there's going to be no spot for you on the staff." I think Joe Judge staying is one of the most shocking things to me, because now we can finally see, okay, the last 2 years you had Jackson Dart, and then Trinidad Chambliss this year. Was that Lane Kiffin? Or was that Joe Judge? Now we'll get to see that opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that obviously Lane fans will go back and say, oh, don't look at just the Ole Miss quarterbacks. Obviously look at Tua Tagovailoa, look at all the guys he coached at Alabama, the guys that are FAU and elsewhere. And I think it's going to be really interesting with Ole Miss. Can they keep this momentum going that has been started there by Lane Kiffin? I'm really interested in that. Now let's take a look at big picture with LSU and Ole Miss. What do you expect now of LSU? I think a lot of people coming in are saying, you know, Nick Saban obviously won a national championship at LSU. So did Les Miles. So did Ed Orgeron. You can call Lane Kiffin, I think he's self-proclaimed as the portal king. He's obviously a good recruiter as well. He's a good developer as well. Where do you see this for LSU, and then where do you see Ole Miss now with Pete Golding at the helm?
We'll start with LSU here. I think that in the long run, this is probably the right move for Lane Kiffin to go to LSU, where you know there is proven stability there. They are proven champions now. I mean, he could have had everything. He could have had a statue built for him at Ole Miss. But, I mean, I go back to now it's not the same because Saban went to the NFL before he went to Bama. But Saban leaving at LSU and then eventually going to Alabama. And, you know, you could talk about how some people thought he was just going to be another coach there. Somebody like in the shadow of Bear Bryant. But now I think Lane Kiffin has all the resources he needs. Now he doesn't have to rely on the portal as much anymore, because now LSU can get these high school recruits. So that way he isn't so one-dimensional. We talk all the time about you don't want to be a one-dimensional offense. Well, you don't want to be a one-dimensional recruiter either. I mean, at some point, if you only rely on the portal, it will catch up to you.
Absolutely.
The most stable way of recruiting is still going to be high school. It always will be high school. And then you can use the portal to fill the gaps here. But one thing I am going to keep an eye on is once their season is done, how many players actually enter the transfer portal and follow him to LSU? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't that many.
No, exactly,
Because he talks about how this is like a disservice to this team, and, you know. I almost feel like some of them are mad at him and don't really want to go. I mean,
if I'm an Ole Miss player, I think long and hard. I mean, if the money's right, then maybe you go. But I think long and hard that, hey, we've already built this. We know that we can make a college football.
This guy quit on me.
Like,
why would I want to go to play for a coach that already quit on me once, has a history of quitting on people? And I mean, I respect Lane Kiffin. He's a great coach, but it's just part of it's like, man, like you built yourself up to be this god, and how, you know, the past is the past, but. You know, he was I don't know what ESPN's Marty Smith said. He was the Cinderella of the ball. Or whatever. I mean, he
created all that.
He's still the same.
He said he's still the same guy. And it feels like, okay, this is a retread of what we saw, like you mentioned, with the Oakland Raiders and Al Davis having that press conference with Tennessee and even with Nick Saban, because as you said, like, that part of the story really doesn't get mentioned all that much, which is the reason why I found really interesting that Nick Saban was on board for, hey, Lane Kiffin could coach this team and should coach this team. I should be, if anybody, Lane, Coach Saban, you should be the one saying, hey, we know the dangers of being able to try to have a foot in both worlds. Try to have a foot at LSU and try to have a foot there at Ole Miss. I don't see it, but no, you're right. I think that going into it is going to be insane. For this LSU football program, all I have to say is this better work out. Because let's just talk dollars right now. As of right now, they're going to pay Brian Kelly north of $50 million, $54 million. Yeah. And that got ugly because they were trying to fire him with cause. And it was just, the governor got involved. They have a new president, the AD. It was insane.
Before we get into the money, can I just talk about how this is just a match made in heaven? I mean, you've got the toxic relationship right there with the governor and everything. And, we don't want to blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Fitting perfectly with a guy that just loves all the attention. I mean, it's just a match made in heaven. Let me tell you.
It really is. We'll see if that converts to wins on the football field. History would tell you probably so. But it's $54 million to Lane Kiffin. But also LSU will pay the incentives that Ole Miss was going to pay him for the college football playoff and everything else. So I think it's like up to maybe $1 million. And then Lane Kiffin's deal at LSU, reportedly 7 years, $91 million, about $13 million a year. Patrick, this is before one player has been paid in NIL money. So that's not even counting the NIL deals and NIL incentives. I mean, it's an astronomical amount of money. So all I'm saying is if you're LSU, this better work.
If this doesn't work, LSU is going to be a doormat for the next 10 years. And honestly, you could make – I wouldn't be shocked if it does work. I also wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't work.
Right.
Because the last big opportunity he got at USC, that didn't work.
Right.
I mean, he had one good year.
Yep.
Then he got fired on the tarmac.
Yep.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he got fired on the tarmac in Baton Rouge or wherever they fly out of. Maybe New Orleans. We can have another crazy departure. But at the same time, he's a proven winner.
Yeah.
The only thing he hasn't won is a national championship, and that's the big grudge that people are holding against LSU. Why would you pay a guy so much money that hasn't won a national championship?
Right.
He's the best coach available on the market for one of the best programs in the nation, and we'll see how it works. I think the competitor in him, he didn't really have a reason yesterday why he thought LSU was better than Ole Miss.
Right.
But I think that's partially him saying, I'm going to make it better.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to go there and win. But
time
will tell, and if you look at some of these games next season, I mean, you host Clemson because of the home and home. That's going to be. I don't expect Clemson ended this year on a really hot note.
For sure,
they're in a bowl game.
Yeah, they'll be feeling good about themselves.
Even in one of Dabo Swinney's worst seasons, you host Alabama. You go to Oxford, which I'm sure they're going to have pleasantries for them there, and then you go to Auburn, who just hired Alex Golish. So I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's too early to tell, but honestly, I can't wait for the next season already because I just want to see how this plays out.
You and me both. Still a lot of football to be played this year. Still a lot of show